All right, guys, I know we don't normally make this type of video, but this is something that I honestly think is important, and it's gonna now, as of tonight, be something that the Trump administration is gonna have to deal with on the realm of foreign policy for the next 4 years. This is arguably yet another mess left behind by this administration, and we can talk or debate about their specific involvement in it, but another mess left behind that now Trump is gonna have to fix, or at the very least, figure out how to deal with for the next 4 years. So we'll tell you all about that in tonight's video. First, folks, do us a big favor. Make sure you're subscribed, okay? I always say subscribing is the best way to ensure we can keep bringing you these videos. It's also totally free. All you got to do, hit that red button down below. Greatly appreciated in advance. And with that said, what exactly are we talking about, Vince? Why is what's happening in Syria so important? Well, guys, the VinceDao decision desk can now officially make the projection that the Bashaar Al Assad regime has fallen in Syria, okay? So we can make that projection based on a few things. First of all, the Syrian rebels have now taken over all of Damascus, which is the capital of Syria. They're storming the presidential palace. Assad has fled the country. There are numerous reports he may be dead. Whether or not those are true doesn't really matter. Okay, the point is his regime is done. It's out. And let me be clear before someone tries to say it, okay? Assad was not a good guy. That's not really what we're mourning here. Oh my gosh, such an amazing leader is gone. No, but the point I have made about this subject for years is that while Assad may not be a good guy, what you are about to witness, and mark my words on this, is yet another Iraq war situation, or one could even argue maybe it's akin also to the Islamic Revolution in Iran in 1979, which is Bashaar Al Assad. This is what's important to understand about his regime. Yes, it may have been brutal. Yes, it may have been authoritarian and so bad and all of these things, but it's important to note it was a secular government, okay? It was a government that was protecting the rights of Christians and the religious minorities there. It was a government, most importantly here, guys, that was keeping the Islamic extremists at bay. And now with that said, I think we need to have a brief discussion about the Syrian Civil War so we can remember back to Obama, the legacy of very bad, I would argue, destructive US foreign policy for a decade here, and now how we got to this point. Okay, so think back first of all to 2014 and Obama and what we were trying to do there. So the official kind of main stated goal of our involvement in the Syrian Civil War was ISIS is bad, right? We're trying to get rid of ISIS. Except simultaneously, remember how we were fighting ISIS in Syria? We were doing so by funding the so-called Syrian rebels, okay? And this is just the great stupidity of US foreign policy. Is on one hand, we were trying to get rid of ISIS, but we were also saying Assad is bad, so we want to get rid of Assad, even though, I'm going to remind everyone, the Assad regime was trying to fight ISIS. They're a secular government. They're not pro-Islamist. Again, you may say they're bad, but they are secular, right? So they were trying to go after ISIS. They were obviously trying to stop the Islamic terrorists from taking over their country. But what were we doing simultaneously while claiming, and this is the stupidity of Obama, like I said again, that's his legacy, by the way, just stupidity on many fronts, but especially this one. He was arming and funding the terrorists to supposedly fight the terrorists, okay? Because remember that map, the map of like the controlled territories in Syria? So this guy said that he was going to try to fight ISIS by funding the Syrian rebel groups who were supposedly against ISIS, even though they were fighting side by side. Yeah, the point here, guys, they were always more or less the same, right? They were similar groups fighting for a similar cause, which was to overthrow Assad. So long story short, we were always funding the terrorists here. And now, a decade later, after especially Russia has largely been unable to prop up Assad anymore because they're too busy fighting in Ukraine, now those very Syrian rebels, let's remind ourselves, who were fighting alongside ISIS 10 years ago, and the US was very stupidly funding. By the way, the US directly created ISIS. Can we not forget that fact here? These are the people, guys, who have now taken over Syria. And hopefully by now, with that little explanation, with that context, you can understand why I see this as such a bad thing. Because as we so often see in the Middle East, when you topple a government like this, when you create a power vacuum, who takes over? Not the, pro-democracy, pro-Western, open, liberal people. No, who takes over are the Islamic terrorists, and that's what's about to happen. You're about to see likely, I mean, let's all pray something different happens, but very likely you're about to see the installation of a fundamentalist, extremist, Islamic government in Syria. And can I just say to all the people defending this, we'll get into talking about the left-wing reaction to this in a second, but to all of the right-wing neocons who are celebrating this because Assad is a dictator, he was such a bad guy. Okay, first of all, you're replacing one authoritarian government for another authoritarian government, but I also find it to be so morally hypocritical for all of these supposed evangelical Christian neocons to be celebrating the fact that thousands of Christians right now in Syria are about to be persecuted, and maybe even worse than that, if you kind of catch my drift on that front. Okay, very bad things are about to happen to the Christians in Syria. Again, I will reiterate that the Assad regime, despite all of its flaws, one thing they did do was respect religious minorities like the Christians, and now you can virtually guarantee by the fact that these are the same rebel groups who were fighting alongside ISIS are now in power. Yeah, I don't think things are going to go very well for the Christians, guys, and let's all pray for their safety because, again, going to be a very bad situation. But now how does that all tie into our current politics, the liberals, etc.? Well, I'm going to start by pointing out that, as you could probably expect, the liberals are cheering this, okay? They're saying, oh my gosh, it's so amazing. You know, Harry Sisson, for instance, goes out and says that watching Assad collapse in real time is just such an amazing thing. This person right here says next in line. So basically, now that we've taken down Assad, we're going to take down Maduro in Venezuela, and then the Iranian government, we're going to take down Putin. Apparently, he's not at all concerned about the power vacuums and civil wars and just like mass civilian death this is all going to create. And the creation, by the way, of just new, very more extreme radical governments. But yeah, this is just the reckless, insane, arguably genocidal foreign policy that Washington, that the neocon Republicans, as well as Biden and all the establishment Democrats think is just such a fantastic idea. And that's another reason why I say that while the Biden administration does not seem to have a ton of direct involvement in this situation in 2024, it should be pointed out, it is definitely within their interest to see Syria fall and just way more chaos and instability and extremism in that region before they hand over the world to Donald Trump and say, haha, you know, deal with World War III on yourself, buddy. Right? Because that's what they've done in Ukraine. That's what they've been trying to do anyways, sabotage the incoming administration. Hey, what another better way to do that than to sponsor and support the toppling of Assad in Syria? And by the way, let's also point out, again, this whole thing is Obama's legacy, okay? This is what Obama tried to do for so long, take down Assad. Now his efforts are successful. And unfortunately, the world now, and especially the Christians in Syria, but a lot of people are now going to have to deal with those consequences. Now, this is what Donald Trump went out and said earlier today as the writing was on the wall for the Bashaar Al Assad regime. He says, opposition fighters in Syria, in an unprecedented move, have totally taken over numerous cities in a highly coordinated offensive and are now on the outskirts of Damascus, obviously preparing to make a very big move towards taking out Assad. Russia, because they are so tied up in Ukraine and with the loss there of over 600,000 soldiers, seems incapable of stopping this literal march through Syria, a country they have protected for years. This is where former President Obama refused to honor his commitment of protecting the red line in the sand, and all hell broke out with Russia stepping in. But now they are likely, possibly Assad himself being forced out, and it may be the best thing that can happen to them. There was never much of a benefit in Syria for Russia other than to make Obama look really stupid. But in any event, Syria is a mess, but is not our friend, and the United States should have nothing to do with it. This is not our fight. Let it play out. Do not get involved. So it's definitely very optimistic there, right? To hear Trump, despite the fact that it's a very bad situation probably on the ground in Syria now, to say the US is not going to get directly involved. It's not going to be our fight. I totally agree. I totally support that decision. However, I still have to be worried now about the next 4 years and 8 years and beyond that and what's going to happen because, you know, at the very least, okay, I don't think we're going to like the new government that takes power, but at the very least, we need to pray that the government that takes power is at least stable, because if it is not, if Syria now just devolves into warring factions and more civil war, you can virtually guarantee, you can bet ISIS will be back. Al-Qaeda maybe will see a resurrection. Certainly some type of new Islamic extremist terrorist group to take its place. And you're going to have chaos in the region. And by the way, again, I want to reiterate, that is what the liberals are cheering for. War and terrorism. That is what the neocon Republicans are cheering for. The same people who claim that they're so tough on the terrorists. We want to fight the terrorists, remember 9/11. But apparently, when Islamic extremist terrorists take over a country and now they're just going to use it as their playground, that's a good thing now? Like, it's totally okay. But anyways, guys, just wanted to bring you that report as of tonight. Again, the Assad regime has fallen in Syria. You're probably going to hear a lot of the Western media wake up tomorrow and be like, yay, I'm so inspired, guys. This is such an amazing fight for democracy. Assad was so bad. You're not getting democracy. Like, how hard is that for people to understand? Okay, I don't get how people can see what happened in Iraq, what happened in Libya, what happened in Iran in 1979, and just think that the moment that these dictators fall in the Middle East, it's so happy, rosy, amazed. No, that's not what's going to happen. That's why I'm so concerned. That's why I said that the US government should have never been trying to topple Assad, not because Assad is good, but because the alternative that is going to replace him, as you're going to see here very soon, guys, is significantly and substantially worse. Okay, it's worse for everybody. And by the way, it's those very Islamic extremists that you say are so bad. Let's make that clear. Assad has a lot of issues. He was not an Islamic extremist. He was a secular guy. He was against that stuff. All hell's going to break loose now. Okay. It's a very bad situation. Again, pray for the Christians in Syria. Pray for world peace, because it always goes this way, right? The US foreign policy just breaks my brain. But that said, guys, let me know your thoughts. Be sure to leave a like on this video. Subscribe if you are new. We'll keep you updated on this front, especially if this is a popular video. Trying something different. I felt like it was important to talk about. Let me know. Be sure to leave a like, subscribe, and until next time, God bless and peace.